And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Thank you for making us a part of your Tuesday. How you doing over there, Ben?
Doing well. How are you?
Oh, I'm still recovering from a grumpy night, but, I'm doing all right.
Because it went to overtime?
Well, yeah, obviously it went to overtime, and it was the world's slowest, hardest to watch, stupidest game ever.
Wow, you didn't enjoy the game. I think a lot of people enjoyed that game last night.
I thought you were going to say you lost in Risk again.
No.
Made an example of.
No. Listen, nobody wants to watch 74 foul shots.
No, that's a lot.
Nobody, not one person. And both teams sat their bigs, and both teams made up for it by fouling on every single possession. So, no, I don't think anybody enjoyed watching that brand of basketball.
If you can't play interior defense, you foul. And yes, there were a lot of fouls.
And by the way, I'm not giving Cooper Flagg credit for scoring 42 points.
Oh.
Screw that.
You should.
20 foul shots. Shut the front door.
Well,
he did not play against a team that was serious about defense, I guess, if you really want to oversimplify it. But no, that was the easiest 42 in the world. Just somehow get into the paint and they go to the line. Good luck.
Well, somehow is carrying a lot of weight there. Somehow getting to the paint was.
You mean by getting Keyonte George switched on to you,
or
and
Bryce Sensabaugh, whoever, Lowry
right.
Markkanen, Ace Bagley, everybody the Jazz could throw at him. He got his shoulder into them and drove past them.
So
I thought it was
Cooper may be
extraordinary.
Good,
yeah.
May not. I don't know. But last night wasn't evidence of it. If anything, that was a THT hot dog against Charlotte game. It was so frustrating to watch. It was so horribly officiated. And it did get overly ticky-tacky, and they did take cheap shots because they had nothing else to do. And then they review the cheap shots and still have bungled that. Whereas Lowry's was totally inadvertent, and Keyonte George probably should have gotten a flagrant. And it made me angry about the whole review process. That was the worst. It was, and win or loss, whatever.
Sure.
But I'm talking about how the game was played.
Okay.
I'm talking about who played in the game. I'm talking about how the teams actually performed. All of it was so hard to watch and aggravating and long.
Was long. Did
and
go to
the
OT.
reason it went to overtime was stupid because if you just box out the simplest thing that they teach at the most basic levels of basketball. Ben, your son is familiar with the term
box out.
Box out.
Yeah.
It was. I don't know. I saw some people online being like, what a great game.
Yeah.
Incorrect.
A lot of points. A lot of big baskets.
It was close.
It was. Mavericks only play close games. I was talking to one of their writers yesterday, and he's like, yeah, every game's a clutch game. So last night qualified as well.
And they stink. They can barely field a team.
Yeah, when Anthony Davis doesn't play, they're not going to be competitive, which was by design last night. They wanted to lose that game, and they did.
I think the Jazz wanted to lose that game.
The Jazz did want to lose that game,
and that's another thing.
And they could not.
The tank is on, so terrific. We're going to go through that again, as opposed to looking for development and things like that.
And probably more so than ever because they are so far ahead of schedule with the wins.
And now we're going to talk about losing games on purpose. Terrific. They're like nothing to be happy about in Jazz land today, in my opinion.
Okay, I would disagree.
Keyonte played well.
Absolutely.
But he didn't play against a serious team either.
Yeah, but again, and this goes with Cooper Flagg too. If this was a guy who averaged 6 points a game and goes for 35, a la Taylor Horton-Tucker, who cares? The difference is, and I said this to DJ before the show, before I jumped on with him, while the Jazz made Cooper Flagg look good last night, they made him look 2 weeks ahead of schedule, not 2 years ahead of schedule. This is not the last 40-point game we're going to see from Cooper Flagg this year. He's going to do this again, and he is one of the best young players we've seen come into the NBA in a very long time. But for the Jazz, and what's relevant for the Jazz, is that Keyonte George's leap is absolutely real. He did it on the road at Memphis, and now he's doing it here in Salt Lake City. And yes, sometimes you play against bad teams, and you got to take advantage of that. And that's what he did last night. And, Memphis didn't have Zach Edey either, who's their best rim protector. If you don't have a good rim protector, Keyonte's saying, okay, then I'm just going to get to the paint at will, and I'm going to torch you. And if you try and stop me, you're going to foul me, which I had a Jazz fan in my mentions last night saying, you like that brand of basketball? No, but the NBA does because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just won the MVP, the finals MVP, and is on the best team that we may ever see because he gets to the foul line at will. And that's what the league is rewarding right now. So you don't have to love the way it looks, but if you have a guy who can manipulate the rules in his favor, you have a good player. And Keyonte George is learning how to do that. So if you're trying to figure out, what caliber of player he is, the sky becomes the limit if you can bend the rules to your will. And that's what Keyonte has begun to do. And that's why I thought last night was at the very least interesting, though I'm with you. You know, I got home at midnight last night too and had to get up early to come back and do an hour with DJ, which I'm happy to do. Wouldn't trade my job for anything, but I do recognize that this was a quick turnaround.
Yeah. A quick turnaround isn't all that aggravated me about the game.
I get it.
Not at all. And if you want to talk about the modern NBA and how that's aggravating too, sure, I'm more than willing to have that conversation. I honestly don't even care about Keyonte's point total or last night in particular for Keyonte because I don't need to see him score 37 points. I'm perfectly aware if he's capable of having a night where he scores 37 and gets 6 assists. That is not a shocker anymore. I want to know what he does next game. And the game after that, and the game after that. And you asked a good question in the postgame about Keyonte and when, I can't remember how you phrased it, but it's when you just expect it.
Yeah.
Right? It's when, okay, you're just going to get 22 and 8 from this guy every single night, and we don't have to worry about the no-shows. And, I mean, I thought Will kind of gave you a good answer. I'm not sure if it was exactly what you're looking for. It was kind of more of those, onward and upward and you never arrived kind of things, which you expect to hear from a coach. But that's very much relevant in the discussion about Keyonte George. Because if you can just expect 22 and 8 to walk through the door every single night, and maybe he shoots 50%, maybe he shoots 38%, but it's 22 and 8 every single night, well, then all of a sudden you've got a guy and you can stop worrying about that. That's what's relevant, I think.
Here's what Will said to me last night, because I said the verbiage essentially was, when do you just recognize that what Keyonte's doing is baked in to your game plan? When can you just say, this is something we're going to get every night? Now, how do we take the next step with him or other players around him? And he said, Keyonte has changed all of our expectations for him, and I think that's a good thing. I think that does make us feel differently about him in terms of our roster and what it could mean moving forward, which if I'm reading through it, and if he wants to disagree with me or correct me next time we talk, he can. But that does sound like this is a person we're building around. And well, this has been the big conversation in Jazz land about the term building around because of Yusuf Nurkic's response to a Jazz fan who said you can't build around Lauri Markkanen, Keyonte George, or Ace Bagley. Does seem like Will Hardy is saying this is a person you can at least factor into how you're building your roster. And outside of Lauri Markkanen, I don't know if the Jazz have another player that you can say that about. And now Keyonte's in that group, which means you've doubled the number of players you might feel confident doing that with.
I don't know. Maybe I'm tired of cliches or something, but the whole build around thing is silly. Listen, if Hot Dog scores 40 against the Hornets one night, but he's not a serious player, you're not going to keep him on your team. If Keyonte George can consistently average 20 and 8 or whatever over an NBA season, then all of a sudden he's a piece of what you're doing. Whether you trade him or whether you keep him or whatever, that's all that's relevant. Build around. What do you think that the Jazz would reject a player because, like, wait a minute, we're already building around Keyonte?
No.
That seems really silly to me. And I know I'm not saying you, Ben, because everybody uses the term build around. Where the Jazz are as a franchise, they need dudes. They need players that can play, and it needs to fit their timeline because they can't bring in a bunch of geezers who are only going to be around for a year or two because that's not the window that they're operating in. So there are some parameters, but they need players. And if Keyonte's a player, then okay, they're building around Keyonte, whatever that means. If Taylor Hendricks is a player, then they're going to build around Taylor Hendricks, whatever that means, and Keyonte George. And so, I don't know, build around seems silly to me. Build around Lauri Markkanen? I don't know. You're going to use Lauri Markkanen to better your team. And whether that's him playing on the team or him playing for the Bucks is open, and I use the Bucks because they're the latest with trade rumors, right? That's open for some sort of discussion. They're not in a place where there's not an untouchable player on the team. Anybody could be traded at any time. There's no guaranteed slot. They just need guys that can play NBA high-level basketball, period, end of story. And if Keyonte's that, then that's a real win where people thought that was a loss 6 months ago.
I totally agree. And the hard part there, or maybe it's a thing that we make up as a hard part. I don't know. I do think this is one of the difficult nuances of being an NBA front office member is how do you know what's empty calories and how do you know what's not? And that was part of my question last night for Will Hardy that, I'm not sure he answered. And I didn't ask it directly, so that is on me if that was the answer I was looking for. But essentially it's how do you know what's real? Because Bradley Beal was the old maid. And Bradley Beal's numbers are better than what Keyonte George has put up. Bradley Beal was 30 points a game, all this, all that. Conceivably a guy you should build around. And it didn't actually contribute to winning. We did a segment yesterday on the show about Donovan Mitchell. And, I got to be better. I've got to do all this stuff. What Keontae's doing right now in his third year is almost identical to what Donovan Mitchell did in his third year. So when you believe that Keyonte is Donovan Mitchell, is he? Well, Donovan Mitchell was winning 50 games a year and putting up these points. Does that matter more? Or was Donovan Mitchell just playing next to Rudy Gobert? And was that the difference? And the Jazz brought in Bojan Bogdanovic and Mike Conley. Well, put this Keyonte George next to a future Hall of Famer in Rudy Gobert, an all-star in Mike Conley, and a very good role player in Bojan Bogdanovic. Are the Jazz winning 50 games again? And if so, does that mean the Jazz have Donovan Mitchell and Keyonte George, or do the Jazz have Bradley Beal and it doesn't matter? I think that is a real conversation.
It's all empty calories until they win in the playoffs, period. It is.
Yeah,
it's
that's totally
It's
fair.
all empty calories
question.
until they beat a legitimate team in the playoffs and they advance on, which Donovan did do. But the silly thing about the build-around thing is why would you build around Donovan? That wasn't enough. Donovan isn't enough on his own, nor is any NBA player. So, again, getting back to this silly, build-around, you can't build around two guys. You can't build around three guys. You got to have a team of at least 8 to 9 guys.
Yeah, good players.
To compete for a championship. And we've seen Denver not compete for a championship last year because they were the thinnest team you've ever seen. They've got the best player on the planet. They've got complementary pieces. Their coaching situation was a bit of a snafu. But they only had 5 legitimate NBA guys on the roster, and you aren't going anywhere.
Yeah,
so
the myth about the Nuggets that people overlook now is not only did they have the best player in the world in Jokic, they also had maybe the best number 2 guy in the world, whether that was Jamal Murray at the point or the best number 3 guy in Aaron Gordon, and so on down the line, where Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was the best 5th player on the team on the planet, and Bruce Brown was the best 6th man on the planet in that run. They were all the guys playing the right roles at that time. So yes, to your point, you can't only focus on the number 1 or number 2 guys. Now, if you have the 6th best 6th man on the team or the best 6th man on the team, that doesn't matter if you don't have the guys in front of him. I think that is absolutely relevant to what the Jazz are trying to do. But yes, to your point, it can't just be 1 or 2 guys. It can't just be Cooper Flagg.
no, LeBron himself could not get the Cavs over the hump just with LeBron and a cascade of clowns. Multiple runs in Cleveland, LeBron couldn't.
Got maybe as close as anybody, but couldn't get it there.
And you know what? LeBron, or Cooper Flagg for that matter, ain't walking through the door down there at Southtown Mall anytime soon. So what are you going to do? You going to just lie down until somehow you luck into LeBron? I mean, I guess that's kind of what the Cavs did for a minute until they got him in the draft. But the Jazz need to. The Jazz, I don't think, are at the, if we want to entertain the build-around discussion, the Jazz aren't even there.
No, I don't think they are either.
They're not there. I mean, if the Mavs want to say we're going to build around Cooper Flagg, okay, but hilariously enough, they're not even doing that in Dallas because that team is full of geezers and nobodies. So, wait till Dallas jettisons the geezers and goes super young, and then we'll see how well Cooper Flagg's doing then. I mean, team building in the NBA is totally fascinating to me.
It is.
And where the Jazz are now, I don't think they have the luxury of those discussions. I really don't. If a contending team calls about Keyonte George today and is going to give you a bunch of stuff, you move them.
You certainly listen.
Now,
you listen less than you did 6 months ago, but you're also getting a different offer.
And I'm on the Keyonte bandwagon. If he stays with the Jazz, I think he would likely have many productive years here, it seems. Yep. But if Milwaukee calls tomorrow and says, you guys want Giannis, and you say, well, okay, what do you guys want? And they say Keyonte, you say, all right.
Yeah, of course.
Sounds good.
Yes, no question about it. But where this is interesting and where I think you're right on is you're not having the conversation of building around these guys yet. You're starting to put the puzzle again to a little bit. The fog is clearing. The smoke is clearing. You're starting to see a little bit of an idea of what this thing could look like, and Lowry could be a part of it, and Keyonte's proving he could be a part of it. But, if you feel like the biggest piece of the puzzle still has to come via the draft, which I don't actually even necessarily agree with, but
I don't either.
It is the route the Jazz have taken over the last 3 seasons of thinking that's the most likely way to get this player. You aren't at the build-around stage. You are still saying that you need another guy to come in to actually start the build-around process, which does mean that what you're seeing right now between Keyonte and Lowry is a little bit of fool's gold, which is where you started this segment, that scoring 70 combined points against the Dallas Mavericks without Anthony Davis or Derek Lively, who are their two good big men in the paint, doesn't actually mean anything. And the Jazz might agree with you.
And it is what is stupid about the NBA, and the team's intentionally losing. And I heard DJ set the number at a third. That's probably about right. Not just a third who are trying and aren't very good, but a third who are trying to lose. And I don't know. I think that's a problem. And it wasn't the players' problem last night. I mean, they played hard, did what they could. The Jazz players played to win, and good for them. But not rostering any bigs. Either team rostering any bigs. That is a not serious game. And, hey, super stoked it was close. Yeah. I'm glad the fans got to see some big shots or whatever, but I thought it was a pretty unattractive brand of basketball, and it was two teams that were not fielding serious teams.
I agree with you. The only aspect of that is that the win still counts in the win column, and the Jazz are going to have to negotiate that with what they want to do for the rest of the season if they feel like the best way to continue to build this team, even if they're not building around Lowry Markin or Keyonte George, is through the draft. They're going to have to figure out a way to make sure they don't win too many games before the end of the year to hold on to
It's an NBA problem, not a Jazz problem, but it doesn't mean that I have to like it, which I do not.
And it doesn't mean the Jazz are immune from dealing with it, because the Jazz have to deal with it. The Jazz do have to deal with it for the rest of the season now.
All right, guys. Nurk's not playing. Phil's not serious inside. How are we gonna stop these guys? Foul them every time.
Yeah, more fouls.
And both teams brought that strategy.
Yes, they did.
They're like, we're going to foul every time. And then, interestingly enough, at the end of the fourth quarter, they stopped calling fouls, which was fine with me.
Of course.
But yeah, I would be aggravated if I were a player then, too. It's like, wait a minute. I couldn't breathe on somebody for the entire game.
42 minutes.
And now, I mean, both sides, like, hard fouls in the paint. And they're like, man, letting it go.
Play through it. Yep.
It's like Leslie Nielsen in The Naked Gun, where he's the umpire, and he keeps, really selling the strike calls. He's doing the moonwalk and all that stuff. And then they come up to him, and they're like, you can't let him get the third out. And so he gets back behind the plate, and the guy throws a total pipe shot, and he's like, ball. Then comes another ball. Hilarious.
Yeah. Leslie Nielsen had it.
Man, you can't even touch your guy on defense without getting a call. Oh, it's under 90 seconds to go. No!
Play on.
Play on, everyone. Deal with it. Hilarious. Ball. Ball. Then the guy pops up, and he throws all the balls in the back. Man, I love that movie. All right, stay tuned. Top 3 stories of the day at KSLSports.com. Coming up next is Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the Top 3 Stories of the Day on KSLSports.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Get the best blankets and gifts ever. Save 50% off at Miki Couture with the promo code ZONE50. Shop online at MikiCouture.com or visit any of their 6 locations. And let me tell you, that ZONE50, that's the best deal in town.
That's the ticket.
You're welcome. ZONE50, Miki Couture, and you're going to win Christmas. I know it's not supposed to be a competition, but you can take home the W. Don't worry about it.
Yes.
Do you view that as a competition with you and your spouse?
Yes.
Do you really?
Everything is.
Oh.
If you're not competing, you're falling behind.
I definitely do not.
No, of course not.
But I am not a very good gift giver, so that might be one of those can't win, don't try kind of things.
No, I try and give a good Christmas. Do my best. Hope everyone has a good time. And you will with a Minky.
Time for the top 3 stories of the day. KSLSports.com, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. Cherish your love for J. Brooks Jewelers. With J. Brooks Jewelers, explore their expertly crafted engagement rings made from the finest materials. J. Brooks Jewelers, speaking of winning Christmas. Hint, hint. Christian, where are we starting today?
Number 1, you guys had a great conversation with Christian Cox yesterday talking about Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley in the Utah football program. But what is next for Kyle Whittingham after stepping down?
Not retirement.
Not flat-out retirement, not a commitment to retirement. That doesn't mean that couldn't be the pathway. But again, this Michigan job keeps getting brought up. I think it has more to do with the fact that these stories are so close together. Sharon Moore going to jail, potentially, and Kyle Whittingham becoming a free man in the coaching search is probably more the reason why Whit's a candidate. But look, Michigan is finding itself in an emergency situation, and they are not going to be able to pick what most seasons would be a highly sought-after job with highly sought-after coaches. Now, Whit is a great coach, and if Whit ends up being the safety net, it's actually one of the better safety nets. But I don't think anybody they hired this year is going to be the guy who's going to be the coach 3 years from now. Now, for Kyle Whittingham, he might say, great, I don't want to be coaching 3 years from now. Let me go, spend 2 years at Michigan trying to win and seeing what level I can win at. And what if I do exceed expectations even for myself and I enjoy it? Maybe I will coach until I'm 70. And make another, $8 to $10 million a year if things are going well. What I would hate to see is Michigan to leverage Whit against other guys and dangle him without, I don't want to say him recognizing because he's a smart person. I'm not trying to make it sound like he's a senile guy who doesn't know what's happening or how he would be manipulated. But I would hate to see Whit's name floated out there if the team doesn't have any actual interest in him and is only doing it to force the hand of a younger coach or a different coach to accept the job.
All right. I mean, I don't care if he leverages or who leverages what. If Dilly squeezes $2 million more out of Michigan because Kyle Whittingham's agent or something. I mean, I honestly don't care about that. I don't think that Coach Whit should even consider that job, nor do I think they should even consider Coach Whit. And I actually think it's the reason Dilly shouldn't consider going to Michigan either, although it's a little less with him because of his age. Yeah. But Whit knows how to win at Utah. His formula works at Utah. Dilly knows how to win at Arizona State because he's an Arizona State guy and he knows how to win there. He's leaned into the heat, all this stuff that other coaches have been scared to do because Phoenix is a unique place. The difference is that Dilly is a young man who is smart and ambitious and probably willing to play the game. Yeah. Does that make any sense? Whit is in the I don't give a what phase of his career, which he's more than earned. Does he really want to take a high-profile, high-pressure job that you probably have to compromise your moral integrity to do, where you really don't have a ton of say because there are other big-time factors in your employment, and you've probably got a whole program you have to overhaul, so it's a big job that would probably take some time. And I don't think the Michigan Wolverine fans are willing to give much time. So for Whit, I wouldn't consider it. For Michigan, I certainly wouldn't consider it. I'm going to hire an older, conservative, and I'm not talking politically, I'm talking like lifestyle. I have no idea what Whit's politics are, nor do I think they're relevant. Yeah. But he's a conservative dude that rides his Huffy to practice or whatever. I mean, he's certainly not Sharon Moore, but he's kind of a white picket fence kind of dude. And I don't think they should be looking for a conservative white picket fence kind of, I don't give a what, I'm in the, I'm going to like this job phase of my life. I don't think that's what they need either.
So what do they need?
They need somebody like Dilly. They do. They need young, ambitious, and willing to do what it takes to win at all costs because everything is on the line for them. Their career is on the line. Picture Urban when he went to Florida. I think that's, at this late stage in the game, I think that's the kind of person. Or else hire internal, hire a Michigan man who's just going to cheat his backside off. Yeah. It's one of those two. I don't think you hire the straight arrow, long-time coach from Utah. I don't think that works.
They just missed what was a potentially pretty good window. Despite the fact that this was a great seller's market if you were a coach. If you were a coach, it was a great time to be on the market, renegotiating your contract or trying to leave. And Lane Kiffin took advantage of it, and Kurt Signetti took advantage of it. Coaches all over the country took advantage of it. Nebraska's head coach took advantage of it. Like, getting all these deals restructured to get more money was great, or you leave and you take a bigger job at Florida or at LSU to get paid. This was a really good year to be those guys, particularly. It wasn't like there was a bunch of great coaches that were on the move. That did not actually happen this season. And Michigan even missed that window that closed really quickly. So they're already picking between fewer teams. And Michigan, is on par with Florida and with LSU as far as quality of jobs go. And those jobs didn't go to, I guess, the cream of the crop of college football coaches that were available, maybe outside of Lane Kiffin. So they're already fighting with one hand behind their back. And then they're trying to do it after the process has essentially ended. So if they could pull a Dillingham, that would be absolutely pulling an ace. I think that would be a superb hire if you could lure him away. And maybe they can just simply because it's Michigan. I just don't know if they're going to get that quality of coach.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mark Harlan, though, has now become Bill Belichick.
In what way?
Bill Belichick said goodbye to Tom Brady when he still had gas left in the tank. And so Bill was left on the sideline cheering against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl because it was going to reflect poorly on Bill. If Kyle has something in the tank and goes anywhere and truly succeeds
and wins,
it's not going to look good. It's not going to make Mark Harlan look good. Now, Morgan has a lot to do with that. If Morgan succeeds, then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But if it goes like the Patriots and Belichick went, where all of a sudden they were on the fast train to Sucktown, and Tom Brady was still winning Super Bowls, that's a bad look. That's how a legend like Bill Belichick gets fired in New England.
It is very safe to say that while we don't know exactly why Whit left Utah when he did, he didn't do it because he was done with coaching entirely.
Yep.
So was he forced out? I don't know. Was he done with Utah? I don't know. Did Mark Harlan ask him to leave? I don't know. Did Boosters ask him to leave? I don't know. I've heard a lot of things. But regardless, this wasn't a guy who said, well, I've run my race and I'm done and I'm excited to enter retirement and slow my life down. That's not what we've heard about Kyle Whittingham or from Kyle Whittingham in the slightest. So yes, that does leave the door open for him to go have success elsewhere. And if that does happen, it's not going to look good for Mark Harlan. Which
isn't a good relationship to have with your legendary coach, in my opinion. It's why you deal with these things sensitively and let some of these coaches make their own decisions. But the impression I get is that at least Kyle would be willing to be still at Utah. That's the impression I get. I don't want to report anything because I haven't talked to anybody with the last name Whittingham or anything, but he's got gas left in the tank.
Yep.
And Utah was willing to, I don't know.
Welcome him back.
Yeah, welcome him back. I think he'd be back.
I agree.
So now they're in a really awkward position where they're cheering against their legend.
Not fun.
I hope for Whit, and I don't know. I think him going into the NFL and landing like a linebacker spot with the Chiefs or something like that, I think that'd be pretty dang cool. And actually, you can be in your I don't give a what phase and be a position coach in the NFL where you're actually coaching and you're not recruiting. You're still making a nice salary, but it's not your neck on the line. But I don't know. Coaches have big egos, and I'm sure Coach Whit would be eager to prove that he's still got something left.
No question.
Yeah. All right, next.
Number 2, the Utah Mammoth on an East Coast road trip, playing at Boston tonight, trying to make it 3 wins in a row.
Yeah, got to continue to take steps in the right direction, winning back-to-back the way they did. Pretty dominant, or not dominant, but confident and comfortable win over the Kraken, and then the major comeback against the Penguins in their last outing. Yeah, go out there and get a third. That's how you lace together, what was it, a 7, 8, 9 win streak, and put yourself very firmly back into the playoff spot.
Cole Bagley is going to join us to talk all about it coming up at the top of the 11 o'clock hour.
Great.
So it's 11:30.
The bottom of the 11 o'clock hour.
11:30, Cole Bagley will be on the show, and we'll ask him about the mighty Boston Bruins, who currently, Ben, are sitting on 38 points. So pretty good. Next.
Number 3, breaking news out of Ogden this morning. Weber State has their next head coach.
Eric Kerr is taking the job, leaving Corner Canyon, which Corner Canyon has turned into one of the premier high school programs, not just in the state, but in the entire country. He's had several NFL quarterbacks come through his high school, and now he tries to do it at Weber State.
I I'm eager. I like kind of. I don't know if you want to call hiring a high school coach out of the box, because it certainly has happened before. But I like some out of the box thinking, and maybe going to a high school guy with some success who can bring a different philosophy in. Because I do think there are talented coaches who coach high school and don't make the millions of dollars. So it's cool to see, them get an opportunity. The thing is, though, Ben, is that coaching in college and coaching in high school are so different. And he could have the best schemes on the planet. If you don't get the players, it doesn't matter. And in college, you have to figure out how to go out and get players. And I'm sure he's developed a plan and told Weber State how they're going to do that. But to say it and do it are a couple of different things. He can boast about a couple of NFL quarterbacks, which I'm sure will help him, but it's still a completely different animal. So I like that Weber hired a guy that has a ton of potential, and I'm eager to see if it works.
I hope they give him some time, because it's a different animal that he's tackling at Weber State than he had at Corner Canyon, but clearly he does have an eye for talent and can put up some big offenses. So we'll see if that's able to work, but it's an unusual path. You don't see a lot of high school head coaches jump immediately to college head coach, regardless of the level. You see guys take position coaching jobs. You see guys, test the water, find their way in, and then move up that way. But to jump from, the number one guy in high school to the number one team in college is a pretty massive leap. So we will see. Just knowing football do it. Troy Taylor worked his way up to becoming the head coach of Stanford after being a high school head coach and then going to the FCS level as a coordinator, et cetera, up the list. We'll see if Eric Herr can do better.
What's next? Oh, that's it. There you go. That's
the
number 3.
Story
Sorry
at
about
KSLSports.com.
All right. Well, I'll get to more coming up next. Jake and Ben. All right. Let's give away Jazz tickets. It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday. Caller number 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. We're going to hook you up with a pair of tickets to go see the Jazz and the Magic coming up on Saturday, December the 20th at Delta Center. Tip-off for that one will be at 7:30. Caller number 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. Stay tuned. More next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We want to remind you about our good friends at My Hearing Centers. They're going to be hanging out with Hanson Scotty coming up today from noon to 3, 8941 South, 700 East in Sandy. Ben, real quick, responding to something coming in on the Snap Talk, and then I have another thing for you. But our friend 801 Sports tweets in, he says, Michigan did just win a championship with a conservative white picket fence kind of guy with Harbaugh. Witt would win there as well. Let me clarify what I meant about conservative white picket fence kind of guy. And not that I think Witt would be above trying to find a competitive edge. I don't think he would be willing to go.
Connor Stallions?
Yeah. And I
Not
don't.
at all.
Jim Harbaugh, I think, compromised some stuff to win.
No question about it.
I mean, when there are stories about him hiding in trees to get recruits and
There's
stuff
a
like that.
reason he's not in college anymore.
Right.
He was winning at the highest level, was going to be the highest paid coach in college football if he wasn't already. Had every advantage you can get, including a title, and said, nope, I want the notoriously great NFL team, the San Diego, now LA Chargers.
Uh-huh.
I want that job. No, he had to get out of town.
So, yeah, I'm not talking about – I was trying to talk about integrity, really, and I used words that didn't mean that. So
no, they could have double meanings.
Yeah,
but.
yeah, right. So, yeah, I don't think Witt is willing to compromise his integrity like he would be asked to do in Michigan.
And while
that's my point.
I do think a lot of teams, we saw with BYU, may want to, have the pendulum swing the other direction amid scandal to clean up their image. You did make a good point that why? It does matter at some schools because some schools don't have every other advantage going for them. So if they lose what advantage they do have, which, by the way, BYU's image is an advantage for them.
Uh-huh.
If you lose that, maybe players don't want to go there. That's not an advantage Michigan has to worry about. People want to go play at Michigan. Kids want to go play at Michigan. Parents want their kids to go play at Michigan. They want to play in the big house. It has all of these things working in their favor. What do they care if they're minding every rule?
They just want to win.
They just want to win.
That's it.
And they will find a coach that comes in and says, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win here. And while Witt will say that, when pressed on it, Is he going to put a man in a beard and a fake chin to go sit on the sidelines to read the other team's playbook? Probably not.
No.
Is he going to sit in a tree to get a recruit? No, he might block off some fences so the media can't see, which he's done at Utah. But that's the exact opposite of what Harbaugh was trying to do.
He's not gonna tell the broadcast crew he's starting at quarterback, but he's not going to.
Brian Kelly's going to put a kid up in a crane.
I don't.
To get an advantage if he feels like it's good for him, risking his life. I don't think Witt's going to do that.
I don't think so either. I mean, you can say I'm going to do whatever it takes to win this race, but does that mean you're going to poison your competitor before it starts?
And Will Wade says yes.
Will Wade says absolutely. Kyle Whittingham says probably
Harbaugh
not.
says yes.
Harbaugh said, yeah, well, I already did that. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Sharon Moore said, hold on, I'm DMing somebody.
Hold on, I'm busy. Hilarious. And then the other thing I have for you, Ben, just real quickly. Have you noticed the start that your Kentucky Wildcats are off to?
I have.
7-4, and they basically lost to every decent team they've played.
They're unranked.
Unranked, and people are grumpy about Mark Pope. Have you seen the latest from him, though?
I have not.
He has been ordered not to speak over a conversational volume for the next couple of days due to the strain on his voice from yelling during Kentucky's struggles. Quote, it's been a pretty emotional several weeks, and it's been taxing on my voice, unquote. So he can't scream at his guys for a couple of days.
This has an interesting potential to be what seemed like a major loss for BYU turning into one of the greatest things that's ever happened in BYU athletics. I mean, losing Mark Pope and the chain reaction of landing Kevin Young, down the line Rob Wright, down the line A.J. DeBonsa, and maybe it was the other way around, but
it was DeBonsa first.
DeBonsa first, Rob Wright second. To end up in this position that BYU's in, and the first domino being Mark Pope getting hired by Kentucky after, by the way, they also missed out on a lot of other coaches before they dialed up an alum.
Be careful hiring the hometown hero.
It has set BYU up to,
surpass Kentucky.
Certainly, I mean, they're already better than Kentucky. It's pretty incredible. It is funny. We can try and predict how these things are going to work out and what it's going to look like, and you can never really do it and how people are going to respond to being spurned, and that's what happened with Mark Pope at BYU. And it's been, honestly, nothing but a good thing since. He's not going to last long at Kentucky.
Remember, okay, when I was talking about Texas Tech before the football season started, I made the point, like, it's one thing to have the dough, but what do you do with it? And obviously, Texas Tech spent it on some really great players, and it's made a great impact for them. Kentucky has a bigger budget, allegedly, than anyone else in college basketball for players. And I think their roster is north of I can't even remember the number I heard, but it was like $22 or $25 million or something crazy. He spent it on all of the wrong guys. Like, he didn't get – it's one thing to have that dough, but what do you do? What do you do with it? Who do you bring in? Who are you able to bring in? What do you need to bring in? My criticism about Texas Tech was, well, they're never tough. So are they going to bring in a bunch of flashy dudes that are going to score 40 points and you're going to give up 45 because that's been the history? Or are you going to be a tough team? And what I didn't know at the time was the guy spending the money – I knew there was a guy. I didn't realize it was a former O-lineman who knows what it takes to be tough in football and spend it in a lot of the right ways. Mark Pope spent it on Bozo the Clown.
Mark Pope's teams that have won have consistently been able to do one thing very well, and that's shoot the cover off the ball. He is a good coach at getting players open shots. Coincidentally, so is Kevin Young. But he could get his teams shooting pretty well. And actually, that's what they did last year at Kentucky. They shot the ball well, but people were grumpy because they didn't have NBA players, and they liked the flash of having top 5, top 6, top 10 picks, and not just one on their team at any given time, but multiples. And that is what Coach Calipari did extraordinarily well. He always had lottery picks on his roster. So not only did they usually compete at the NCAA level, even though they only won one title, but they also had the benefit of watching those guys succeed in the NBA and then say, look, we played at Kentucky, and that was a system that fed itself. Now Mark Pope's team cannot shoot in the slightest. They are a terrible shooting team. And outside of Jaden Quinton, who I'm not sure has played this season, who was at Arizona State last year and transferred in, I don't know if they have an NBA player on their roster, they do, including Colin Chandler.
In fact, they paid a lot of money for a transfer point guard couldn't shoot his way out of a paper bag. Christian could go play horse with him right now, and Christian would win.
Christian's a heavy favorite.
Appreciate
Spotting Christian 2 letters.
He'd dominate.
He'd win.
He'd dominate. Yeah, I don't understand. Who are you spending it on? That very much is relevant. So Mark Pope, anyway, has to be a little quiet for a while.
Stop talking, Mark.
Or at least stop berating your players.
Mm-hmm. Hey.
But that'd be like asking Lloyd to stop berating everybody.
But you know what? And look, I don't want to call Mark Pope a bozo. I'm not saying that.
There could be a bozo. There's a bozo factor with everybody.
But
there could be
we have talked a lot about coaches. The smart coaches, you know what they do? They recognize if they're bozos. And they cash in when they get a chance to cash in. And Mark Pope cashed in going to Kentucky. He's probably getting a very handsome salary. We can look up the salary. He's getting a very handsome salary. He's punched his ticket. Whatever happens, who cares? You buy me out, fine. I still got paid. I struck when the iron was hot. And that is a place where college teams can get in trouble and coaches can cash in. And Mark Pope cashed in. Now we'll see. Maybe he's able to turn this around. Teams have slow starts. It's not terribly uncommon in college basketball, and you can make a good run. $5 million. Less than Kevin Young, right?
No,
what,
wasn't
6 years, 26 or something like that?
Wasn't Kevin's? Didn't that come out of his 3 or 4?
Okay, whatever it was. I thought it was over 20 plus million. Certainly was over 20 million. I remember that report. But neither here nor there. Some coaches recognize, hey, I don't really, and I'm not going to say Mark Pope doesn't care about winning. Clearly he does. He's a head coach. But some guys recognize their opportunity to cash in. And I think Mark Pope's done.
7 years, $30 million, 4.3 annually.
Okay. So not quite to the AAV, as they say in hockey, for Kevin Young that Mark Pope got. Though, that will change. You keep winning like this, and he's going to get paid again.
Like what?
Like this.
Stay tuned. We'll have more coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us?
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I want to remind you about Win Ticket Wednesday, your chance to win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. This week, you can win tickets to go see Young Blood Idols, the World Tour to the UCCU Center in Orem on May 13th. Tickets on sale now at livenation.com. Get your tickets today and listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. Far be it from me to tell, people when writing copy what they need to include or not. I'm willing to read whatever. But I do find it funny for these tickets. It's May 13th, and they wrote in 2026. It's like, I think you can leave that out unless it's like 2027.
Yeah.
Maybe people would like to know. But at this point, I would just assume it's May 13th next year.
You would hope so.
Soon to be this year.
We gave away some tickets for August. But again, yeah, how far away are you giving tickets for?
Yeah, again, if it's 2027, feel free to throw that in there. But
yeah.
I don't think you need to include 2026.
Agreed.
I think we just naturally assume that. Ben, there was some big college football news yesterday. Basically, every quarterback in the country who has experience is transferring, which is kind of hilarious. But you know who's staying put? Your guy, Archwell Manning. Which, by the way, what is his? Is it Archwell? What's Arch short for? Archie?
Archibald.
Archibald? Oh, yeah, that's probably it. Archibald Manning is staying at Texas, and he's going to go back and do another year with the Longhorns. Now, what I find interesting about this is the new landscape with college football, where is it really the better move for you to automatically go to the NFL draft? I would argue the answer isn't always yes, because you can make dough while staying at Texas, and you can get better. Because this is the point I'll make, Ben. I love that show Wipeout.
Mm-hmm.
What an incredible television show.
Okay.
I mean,
People
just
getting punched by hilariously sized boxing gloves.
So, but if you watch that show, like, timing is everything. You got to wait for the right time, and then you jump on the moving thing. Or then you move past the boxing glove. You know what? Or else you get the boxing glove right in the face. I'm becoming more and more convinced that in the modern NFL, your window of success is very brief, and if you don't get it right, your chances of succeeding are low. See Zach Wilson. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
He went into the NFL, he got his opportunity, he wasn't ready for it, and now he's fighting with everything he's got to get another bite at the apple. If the place would have been different, or the timing would have been different, or something along those lines, Who knows? And I think you can find other examples of that too, of guys that went early into the NFL, got an opportunity early, weren't ready for it, and we've never heard from them again.
List a mile long.
It's a pretty common story. And I don't know Archibald, if he's ready or not, but it used to be you either were having top ramen or at least you were getting an NFL salary. Now, it's not necessarily that much. So if Arch feels like, okay, I need to get better or I'm going to get into the NFL and I'm going to start right away and I'm going to be gone no matter what my last name is. And so I like the idea of Arch going back and getting a little more seasoning because I do think you've got to have it just that window just right where timing, preparedness, opportunity, all those things come into play. So I thought it was pretty interesting. I bet if this were 10 years ago, Arch would have come out no matter what.
I'm curious where he would have gotten drafted. He was not particularly good this year. He finished better than he started. But I don't think what were the projections? He wasn't a top 5 pick. I don't know if he was going to be a first-round pick. And remember, at this point last year, Shador was a lock first-round pick and fell to the 5th round.
I almost guarantee he'd be a first-round pick because of his last name.
Because of his last name.
No matter what.
It's possible. I will tell you.
But that's a great point, because what if he came out last year and everybody's like, which he can, I understand. But what if he did, Ben? He'd be the automatic number 1 pick.
Yes.
The team that drafted him, the Titans, would have to start him, and he'd be in the same position Cam Ward is in, which is on your way out of the league.
And as he proved, he's not even as good as Cam Ward. He's not as good as Cam was.
Right.
He would have been out after a year.
So that's why I'm saying I think timing makes a big difference. Because his last name is Manning, he will get a bite at the apple. I assure you.
Yeah, of course.
Shador is getting a bite at the apple, and he's not from a legacy quarterback family. He's from a legacy cornerback family, and he eventually got a chance. Arch Manning will get a chance. Tim Tebow went in the first round. He's going to go in the first round. The PR machine wins every time. So is he going to be able to succeed in the NFL? That's something different, because that's not PR. That's where the rubber meets the road.
Along those lines, though, I will tell you, if I'm Archie or Arch Manning, who is not getting a Christmas card from me this year, and it is his namesake, Archie Manning, his grandfather. Because his grandfather was the one who told him not to take any NIL money early in his career until he became the starter at Texas. And now, why is he going back to Texas? To get more NIL money. Because he was not sure if he was going to, as you just said, make more money in the NFL or have a chance to make as much money in the NFL as he will make to go back to Texas this year. He should have taken money to go to Texas if he's not going to be an NFL player.
I don't believe that he didn't take anything to go to Texas.
They said he didn't. They said he didn't take it his first year there, and now he has since changed that stance, and he is taking NIL money.
But money doesn't matter to him anyway. I mean,
I don't think that's true. I think money. I mean, his dad's not giving him money.
No. I know, but not like.
I say that because his dad doesn't have money because his dad's not Peyton or Eli.
But that's a luxury take. Does that make any sense?
It is a little bit, yes, no question about it.
He didn't take the NIL money not because he was being altruistic, but because he actually had that choice.
And he does. Yes, he doesn't have to pay off anyone in his family's debt. He doesn't have to take care of anyone. He only has to take care of himself. And he's since been made, maybe not whole, but look, he's missed out on a year of NIL because he listened to his grandfather, and now he's going back and skipping the NFL.
I don't think it's strictly
for NIL.
No, this is my point, though. I don't think it's for NIL.
You think it's for his fear of washing out of the NFL?
I don't think he was good enough to go to the NFL.
Right. I think he's got to be better.
But that's the point. So now it's a financial. I mean, you just said it used to make financial sense. If it was ramen or any money, you take the money. Now that's not the case.
Well, speaking conceptually, if you want to talk just about Arch, I don't think he's just going back to Texas for the money. Conceptually, though, it's less of a risk to go back to school. Now, there's the other side on the field where if you get worse, Matt Leinart went back to USC and he got worse.
Yeah.
But Matt Leinart also won a Heisman Trophy, and there's really nowhere to go but down.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's the case with Arch. I think Christian's right. I don't think he's good enough to succeed at the NFL level, and he probably knows that. And because his name is Manning, he's going to be thrown into the deep end no matter what. Wherever he goes, unless he goes at the end of the first round, which he won't, he'll be expected to start day one. You got to be ready.
Arch Manning this year. And if he comes back and plays well and, yes, gets drafted, he's going to have a chance. But 2,900 yards, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Good, not great numbers. You know, that's middle of the pack.
I know, but everybody watched the Ohio State game and said, this guy sucks. And that was not the case. And then that was the rap that he had for the rest of the year. Those numbers you read off right there is pretty good considering he basically didn't have any numbers against Ohio State. I'm not saying he should have been a Heisman Trophy winner, but he had a pretty good year. And by the way, Texas was competing for the SEC title.
And as we mentioned, he did get better throughout the season and had some more prolific games. It did not help that they did beat Texas A&M. He didn't look particularly awesome, but they did get the win there. But no, I get why he's going back. He should go back. But part of it is because there is NIL money. It does make this a lot easier for him. And yes, he is in a very luxurious spot where he probably didn't need to be worrying about that as much as 99% of other athletes in college football. You know, he's going to come from money. He's going to have money. He's going to be well set up. And as you mentioned, he could even go out and have another mediocre year next year and still have a chance to play in the NFL because of his last name. But other players in this situation, I think, may have come back to Texas because making that extra year of salary there is better than what the opportunity is going to be provided for you in the NFL. Because any other player right now with these stats is not looking as a first-round pick.
I would wonder, again, his last name's Manning. He's going to be a first-round pick. But whatever, he's going to get the opportunity. What's he supposed to do? Say no?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's essentially what he's doing now is say no because I'm sure that he wants to put himself in as best position as possible, which is now legitimate option, whereas it wasn't before. I'm trying to remember who exactly was underclassmen when they came into the draft, but I wonder if like Jake Locker would actually have had a chance to succeed if he felt like he had a legitimate decision. Because it used to be if you're going in the top 10 or whatever, it was a no-brainer. You're going to go because it was better than nothing. But now, is that the case? Who was the UCLA guy that got no chance with Arizona and they moved off him for Kyler Murray? Rosen. Was he an underclassman? I'm trying to remember exactly who were underclassmen. But if those kind of players went back instead of came out, would they have given themselves a better chance in the NFL?
I don't know if it's so much about a better chance in the NFL. If you're trying to compare to what's happening today versus, hey, what I do is leave college with another $1.5 million in my back pocket because I was a very highly rated college quarterback, and that's more important setting me up for the rest of my life than whatever happens in the NFL, which I think, as you have pointed out, Josh Rosen was a good college quarterback. Zach Wilson was a really good college quarterback. There are good college quarterbacks who, for whatever reason, get to the NFL and just absolutely fall flat. They just can't handle whatever it is there. And maybe it's the situation of the team around them or the expectations, whatever it is. There's a million different points of context that could change it. But if you could leave college with X amount of dollars to set yourself up, that's a much better spot than saying, hey, I feel pressure to go to the NFL. You know, Jake Murphy didn't make it in the NFL. He would have been better off coming back to Utah. In today's day and age, would have been really easy. I mean, Jake didn't get drafted. Jake thought he was going to get drafted and make the league. He ended up getting a cup of coffee with the Denver Broncos. He would be a hugely sought-after tight end prospect in the transfer portal. The same way, Ryan at BYU this year, transferring from Utah, had success and probably made a pretty good amount of money.
I think players' goals is to actually make it in the NFL.
Absolutely, no question.
As much as I enjoy talking about money, I think the basis of this conversation was, or in my mind anyway, was how do you best succeed? Instead of having a 2-year career, how does Josh Rosen have a 10-year career? And I think getting drafted at the top of the first round and expected to be good day one, I think is a quick way to not succeed. I think Zach Wilson was given too much too soon. I think that's part of the reason he did not succeed with the Jets. He was not ready for the opportunity. I happen to believe that Jordan Love benefited from not getting thrown into the deep end day one. But Arch Manning likely isn't going to have that option. Wherever he goes in the draft, he's going to be thrown into the deep end because that's what we see with usually first-round quarterbacks that don't go to the Packers. Even Jackson Dart got picked 22? How long did Rusty last as the starter?
3 or 4 games
in front of him.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're Jackson Dart, he looked pretty darn ready. He looks pretty darn ready when he can play. Hope that concussion issues don't become a thing for him. But I think that is delicate. Are you ready? Where is the opportunity? And how much runway do you get? If Zach Wilson, I've always wondered, if Zach Wilson went to a different team, would he have succeeded?
Better than the Jets. But does that guarantee success? No, because every team has whiffs.
Oh, guarantees, certainly not.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if he went to another opportunity that were more invested in, invested in development, I'm sure the Jets would have loved to have developed him, but maybe had better players around him, maybe were a little more functional as opposed to dysfunctional, mentorship, I don't know. Would he have been better? If he didn't get clowned on Hard Knocks, would he have been better? Would he have had a better opportunity? And maybe Zach Wilson is a bad example, but I think there are a number of great examples out there of players that went to the wrong opportunity or too soon or whatever. Sam Darnold is a really good quarterback.
Yes.
So why didn't he succeed with the Jets? And why did the Vikings move off him? And he's one of the few, though, that has gotten a second opportunity and taken advantage of it. And we look at that and go, oh, okay, that happens all the time. It really doesn't.
No.
Once the league decides you stink, it's really hard to get back in.
Yeah.
In fact, the Panthers cut Darnold simply because of his reputation, I would argue, because he's obviously a solid quarterback.
What he represents. He represents a failure of the front office. So, yes, you distance yourself from that guy because the front office is trying to distance themselves from their own failures, even if that guy's not the failure.
Right. So, if I'm Arch, I'm careful about that.
Yeah. I mean, Tyler Huntley probably had a better NFL career than Zach Wilson. He's not made more money. He's probably not had more opportunity. I don't know if he's played in more games. He might last longer. Now, maybe he doesn't. But Tyler Huntley's had a very successful NFL career, especially considering he went undrafted. Zach Wilson's career is viewed as a failure.
Well, so far.
And one was the number 2 overall pick.
Well, he is still a backup quarterback in the NFL.
He is.
So, and Tyler Huntley was never anything more than a backup quarterback in the NFL.
But it is the perspective of how it's looked at.
It's the perspective, which is fascinating because, yeah, Tyler Huntley was an underdog, non-drafted guy, and Zach Wilson had huge expectations, but yet they get to the same place in the NFL. I don't know if I would argue Huntley's played in the NFL longer. He's actually played in more games. I don't know if I'd argue he's had a better career. He's had multiple opportunities to catch on with other teams, and including the Dolphins, and had the chance to beat out Zach Wilson with the Dolphins, and did not.
And he certainly made less money.
And he's gone back to the Ravens because he's a unique fit for them, which good for him. And he found a niche, and he's left and come back in good graces, which, again, not a surprise because he seems like a genuinely pretty good dude. But, that's perspective, in my opinion, not necessarily fact.
Correct. But that's a lot of how this goes in. I mean, I think that is a lot of the decision-making when it comes to being an NFL quarterback. And, yeah, when do you strike? This is a thin quarterback class. This is not a good quarterback class in this year's draft. Mendoza's going to go high. Dante Moore, if he declares the draft, is going to go high.
But getting drafted too high is a curse.
That's not a blessing. Ask Lamar Jackson.
That is absolutely a curse. Ask Alex Smith, who had the curse of the number 1 pick for it's basically the reason it didn't work out in San Francisco.
Right.
And then he turned out to be a pretty good player. But you know who he wasn't? Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
So, I don't know. Cam Ward has the curse of being the number 1 pick. You can look at a bunch of number 1 picks and go, well, that person had that curse because all of a sudden you're expected to be the most incredible. You were the number 1 pick. And just because you were the best quarterback in the class doesn't mean you're the best football player in the class, let alone being comparable to other first picks who were quarterbacks like Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck.
But what you can't do is distance yourself from having the highest expectations. You are expected to come in if you're the number 1 overall pick and change your franchise.
And if you're not ready for that, you're screwed.
Yeah, regardless
Especially
of what
in the NFL, where the patience is just not there, even for number 1 picks.
Right.
You could be the number 1 pick in the end. Well, that's not true because Anthony Bennett washed out pretty quick. But Michael Olakandi was in the league for years.
Yeah. You get a lot of bites at the apple.
You do. If you're a top 5 pick, I'd argue you get a lot of bites at the apple.
Yeah, and you get some in the NFL, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily getting on the field.
Not if you're a quarterback, because then you lose, and then you lose publicly, and then everybody's out on you. Cam Ward's not going to have a lot of latitude, and he might be on the worst football team ever assembled. It's not his fault.
No.
I mean, his behavior hadn't been great, but it's not really his fault.
I'm looking at Matt Stafford now because I'm curious about his approach because Matt Stafford was the number 1 overall pick.
He started right away, basically. But
he started right away. He was on several terrible teams.
But he had Calvin Johnson, which helps.
They also went 2-8 his first year in the 10 games he played. He only played 3 games his second year. They went 1-3. And then by his third year, they were back to winning. They went 10-6. They dropped back down to 4-12. They did some Giants stuff, some Lions stuff, and he was there for a decade before they moved off of him.
But they weren't losing because of him.
No, they weren't losing, and he did produce pretty early. I'm just curious, you look back at these number 1 overall picks. Now, he had 13 touchdowns and 20 interceptions his first season in the NFL. Good for the Lions for sticking with him because they actually proved that it was worth it. A, they won some games with him, and B, they got something major back for him when they traded him.
Peyton Manning set the all-time interceptions record as a rookie.
Mm-hmm. So the patience pays off, and maybe that's where this ultimately goes, is whatever happens with Arch Manning, whoever drafts him, if they do draft him in the top 5. Now, maybe he's just not good enough. He wasn't great this year at Texas. He was fine. He wasn't great. The patience will be the important part.
All right, stay tuned. We're going to talk some Mammoth hockey coming up next with our buddy Cole Bagley. It's the Jake and Ben Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson
1, 2, 3, move it.
on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time to talk hockey with a Utah Mammoth and NHL insider on KSLSports.com. Cole Bagley on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Time to talk some Mammoth hockey. Our next guest appearance on the show is brought to you by our friends at Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. He covers the Mammoth for KSLSports.com. He's our buddy Cole Bagley. What's going on, Cole?
Not a lot. How are you guys?
Doing well. Things have turned up, or have been on an upturn since we last talked to you. Back-to-back wins. Win over the Kraken was very solid, and then it kind of looked like all hope had been dashed again against the Penguins, and they stormed back with a truly impressive third period and overtime. As you've been around this team, you're on this road trip. Are you getting a sense that this feels like an improvement internally?
Yeah, if you watched their last 3 games, even though they lost to Florida, I would say these last 3 have probably been, for the most part, some of the most involved hockey, if you will, from the team as a whole. Guys, really embracing that next man up mentality that Tourney's been talking about since Cooley went down. We've seen some pretty good performances from guys up and down the roster, guys like Nick Schmaltz. Obviously, Dylan Guenther has played really well. I thought Vemelka's been better over the last couple games. But yeah, I think guys are just maybe a little bit more bought in and recognizing that, hey, without Cooley, we've really got to give a little bit more effort, play with some more urgency, and, play that gritty style of hockey to get wins. And, over the last 3 games, even though the Penguins game was not the prettiest, it was still, the most positive outcome and picking up 2 points. And, we'll see if they can't keep it going tonight against Boston.
Maybe you just answered this a little bit, but what is the connective tissue with this team when they really have it rolling their way? What are they doing?
Yeah, I think like any hockey team, it's trying to play a complete 60 minutes and not necessarily, playing your A game for 60 minutes, but giving a complete effort, playing with energy and urgency, because you're not going to win all 60, but if you can, offer your the most effort through 60 minutes. If you can, win 45 to 50 of those, you're going to put yourself in a decent spot to win the game. And that was, really the case against the Penguins, last game out. They made a couple of mistakes, but for the most part, they were out shooting the Penguins, by almost, twice as many shots and even were approaching 3 times as many shots. And eventually pucks started going in. But in terms of style, I've really liked what I've seen over the last 3 games. As I talked about earlier, they've just been playing, with more urgency, towards the middle of the ice as well as close to the net. Guys like Lawson Krause and Jack McBain and really, pretty much all the forwards have started to play that more gritty style of hockey, getting bodies in front of the net, getting the goaltender moving back and forth, screening, his eyes. And that's why we've seen them score as many goals as they have over the last few games. So that's when that's when they're at their best, is everybody's giving a complete effort and they're playing more of that gritty style hockey and close to the net there.
From a scoring production, point production, It doesn't seem like Mikhail Sergachev is that far off of the pace that we saw last year, but his impact certainly feels different. He seems like he's making mistakes out there. He doesn't seem to be making the clutch plays that we saw last season. What have you seen from him, and what has Coach Bear said about it?
Yeah, I asked Coach about this this morning just because, he's not too far off in terms of production. I mean, he's down a little bit compared to last season, but not too much. But I think what it comes down to for Sergachev is I don't feel like he's as bought in as he was a year ago, and I think last year was unique for Sergachev. Obviously, after getting traded from Tampa, where he won 2 cups, he'd spent I think 7 or 8 seasons. He was really established there. There was really nothing left for him to prove, and I'm sure if they would have kept him, he would have just continued to ride it out. But Utah makes the trade for him. They bring in Sergachev, and the expectation I think for Utah is for him to become the number 1 defenseman for the Mammoth, and he lived up to those expectations. He proved that he could be a top D man in the NHL, but it just feels like after he proved that, he's kind of that chip on his shoulder has kind of gone away. He hasn't been as assertive. He hasn't been as emotional. That was a big thing last year. He played with emotion. He played like he wanted to win every game, and he wanted to prove to Tampa and to the rest of the league, the type of player that he was. I just haven't seen that from him this season. Like I said, I talked to Bear about it this morning, and he admitted, look, Mikhail has not had the best start to the year, but he's recognized that, and he's played better as of late.
Is the goaltending where it needs to be to make a playoff run?
No, it's definitely not. I'm not exactly sure where they are as a tandem, but a few weeks ago, a week or two ago, they were like the 6th worst save percentage in the NHL at a collective about .875. Now, Vejmelka has been playing better. I think he's now he's approaching 8.9, maybe the mid to 8.9. So, I think this season is unique for the NHL as a whole. Goaltending in general is down because it's a condensed schedule. Guys are playing more games. Goaltenders are playing more games in a shorter amount of time, which is difficult. And, teams are scoring more goals. So I think, if Utah can continue to just keep their head above water, if Vejmelka he has been better. If he can continue to play the way that he has over the last few games, he will help put Utah in a spot to claim, a playoff position. But the issue is, Vanacek has just not played very well. I think his save percentage right now is .878, which even for a backup is just not the numbers that you'd hope to see. So collectively, they need to be better, but especially Vitek Vanacek, who it appears he'll be getting the start net tonight. So a good opportunity for him to put up a good performance.
So we've seen some really high highs and some really low lows, but what are we, 34 games into the season now for the club? They're sitting on 35 points. Give us a grade on where they are. Give us a grade on how this season has gone so far, and also how well they are set up to make a push for the playoffs.
Yeah, it's like you said, really high highs, really low lows. I think a lot of people feel as though Utah has played below expectations, which I would say is for the most part accurate. But I think when you consider things just as a whole long term, they're tied with San Jose right now in terms of points. San Jose does have one of the tiebreakers over them, which is why the Sharks are ahead of them in the second wild card spot. But with a win tonight, Utah can jump into that spot. And, if the Penguins are able to beat the Oilers, and if the Sharks drop another one, then Utah would actually jump into the top wild card spot. And I think if you were to ask anybody in the front office, or if you were to tell anybody in the front office that 34, 35 games in that Utah would be in the top wild card spot, I think they'd be happy with that. Now, with that being said, the journey, to this point in the season has definitely not been up to expectations. There's obviously some things that have been not necessarily alarming, but they've gone through some tough struggles. So if I'm going to give it a grade, I'd probably give it a C-. I think they're just a little bit below where they should be. A lot of that, again, has to do with how they've gotten there. But at the end of the day, they're right there. They're in the race. And if they can just hang on for the next, 7 or 8 weeks, get to the Olympic break within 2 or 3 points of a playoff spot, or even, just stay in one, then they can get through the Olympics, get Cooley back. They can approach the deadline more as buyers, see if they can't add a piece or two, and really push themselves into the playoffs as they've said they wanted to from day one this year.
Who's the best team in the league right now?
Oh, Colorado Avalanche, far and away. I mean, they've only lost twice in regulation. They have 53 points, on the year. Their goal differential is plus 54. Which is just absolutely outrageous. I think the next best team is Dallas with plus 25. So the Colorado Avalanche, I mean, if they don't win the Cup this year, I mean, that is just an incredible failure for that team. They're just so good in all three facets of the game. They have two of the best players in the world, arguably the MVP this season in Nathan McKinnon. So, Colorado is the team to beat. And I don't know if anybody's – I mean, they've only, like I said, through 32 games, they have 2 regulation losses. I mean, that's outlandish. That is ridiculous.
Cole, we have also learned that the Mammoth are going to be without Logan Cooley for 8 weeks. We didn't know how long it was going to be the last time we talked. How does that change the perspective of the injury, his development, and for the team?
Yeah, kind of like we speculated, right? Didn't think it was going to be season ending. I think 8 weeks is a happy medium, if you will, in terms of an injury, especially because he'll get an extra 3 to make sure he's fully ready to go with the Olympic break. So he'll technically have 11 weeks from the time that he went out to the time that he should, at least they expect him to be back. And for this team, if you lost Logan Cooley for the season, they probably would be in a position of waving the white flag, understanding that it would be darn near impossible to make the playoffs. But, with him out just about 2 months, as I said before, if they can keep their heads above water, if they can, continue to play with a chip on their shoulders, if everybody can buy in and have that next man up mentality, and if they can stay within 2 or 3 points of a playoff spot through these next 2 months, they'll have a shot to really push once Cooley is healthy. So for him to not, be out for the entire season, it changes the trajectory and gives them a chance.
Cole, we appreciate you and all your fine work. We'll be following your coverage from Boston.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Enjoy, Cole.
Thanks, Cole. There you go. Cole Bagley covers the Mammoth for KSLSports.com.
Stack some wins. That's all you got to do. When you're trying to make the playoffs for the first time in franchise history, they've only been here for 2 years, but for first time with the soul of the Arizona Coyotes that they brought here for them, they gotta avoid getting too down on themselves and feeling like, deja vu all over again.
Let's give away some Jazz tickets. Hit it, Christian.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, and your chance to win tickets is right now.
Call this number now.
Call this number now.
Be caller number 12 at 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. And you'll be on your way to Delta Center to see the Utah Jazz.
He fires the 3. He hits. Oh, don't do me like that.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Caller number 12 right now, you're going to go see the Jazz Magic coming up on Saturday, this Saturday, the 20th at Delta Center. Tip-off for that game will be at 7:30. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. We'll wrap up the show. Coming up next, Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson
1, 2, 3, move it.
on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two amigos on their ways, talking sports. They got him Matrix and also loves his tie guy. Ben's got style with his scarves. Oh my.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This segment is brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255, Peach Doors and Windows. Also, join us, KSL Sports, at Miki Couture in Draper this Thursday from noon to 3. Miki Couture has you covered this holiday season with the best gift ever. Visit MikiCouture.com. And don't forget, get 50% off by using promo code ZONE50. Ben, the Jazz won last night. It is their 10th win on the season, and people are worried they're going to make the playoffs. Which is such a stupid. I hate this conversation so much.
I'm with you. It is worth noting. Let's see. When did the Jazz win their 10th game last season? They won it on January 12th. So they are more than a month ahead of schedule where they were last year. Now, I think as you and I both said, there was no chance they were going to finish the season with the worst record in the NBA. I think that was very apparent. The fact that Vegas set their over-under at 17 games, I always thought was free money, but I don't gamble. Certainly wouldn't gamble on the team that I cover, but I don't gamble, period. But what the Jazz are experiencing, and I would suspect Austin and Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck know better than anybody, or should know just because it should be a understanding in your job, is that going from the worst team in the NBA to mediocre bad, which is where I'd say the Jazz are still mediocre bad as a team that can win 30, 35 games, is not really an accomplishment. It's not an accomplishment of any note at all. And look, to your point, and I've, I think about our show a lot. You said, I think this team can win 30 games. You said that. You said the Jazz, if this team wants to win 30 games, and I was a little skeptical. I thought 30 seemed high. They could blow past 30 if they wanted to right now. And this isn't even including that. I mean, that conversation was before Walker Kessler got hurt. If you had Walker on this team, you're competing for 38 wins easy.
Yep.
So it's not hard to do. You look around the NBA and you hate losing 60 games a season because it feels bad, and losses actually do feel bad. Every night they feel bad. And that can make it easy to like the quick endorphin rush you get from beat the Dallas Mavericks. And again, I probably don't agree with you on every point, but what did last night's win prove to you? That you beat an 18-year-old who almost beat you by himself? Otherwise, you've got a bunch of not washed, but very average to below average veterans who did not care to win that game in Dallas, and you still almost lost that game, had to go to overtime. That wasn't anything to hang your hat on. Nothing, no data point you got out of last night's game should be something that you start building off of or building around. So you can't fall in love with the simple pleasure of the empty calorie victory you got last night, even if Jazz fans respond to it well on social media or it felt good to be in the arena experiencing it because the crowd got loud. You need to have a better understanding of what you actually are and what you actually aren't, and that 30 wins, 35 wins in the NBA is simply not actually a good bar, even if you get there and it feels better than only winning 17 like you did last season.
Yeah. Well, my take on the 30 games was I watched how hard it was for them to win 17. They had to go to unbelievable measures to only win 17 games. Not just that they were a bad team, but they had to actively try and lose. And it was really hard for them to actively try and lose and get to that. They should we set the bar at 25. You should accidentally get 25 wins in the NBA.
Yes, you should. That's on the table. It's scheduled into your schedule. It's printed out. The day you get your schedule, there should be 25 victories there.
So with Walker Kessler, was it crazy that they get the 30? Heck no.
No.
Because especially the way the NBA is built now, a third of the league are trying to lose games. Yesterday The Athletic had a report that Dallas was going to keep trying to win. And then last night, they obviously aren't.
Yeah. Mysteriously, Sid Anthony Davis. They're obviously not trying to win. How many teams out there are actively trying to lose? Not just not trying to win, but actively trying to lose. Yeah. It's got to be 6 or 7.
At least?
Yeah.
I mean, we could go through it. Let's see. Let's start in the Western Conference just for fun. The Pelicans actually trying to win, but they suck.
Yeah, so they don't own their pick.
So where does that come in? I mean, that's really pathetic is what that is. The Clippers are trying to win and suck, so pathetic. So those two are bad examples. Sacramento is going to actively try and lose.
Yep.
Dallas is going to try and lose.
Yep.
The Blazers might actually be trying to win.
But we'll probably pull the plug at some point. Yep.
The Grizzlies might pull the plug at some point.
Just lost Ja last night.
Yep. So that's how many teams?
That's 3 there, and that doesn't include the Jazz yet.
Let's go with the East. And doesn't include the teams that are just so pathetic that you're likely going to beat them anyway, which is 2 teams. In the East, the Wizards actively trying to lose, and that's only going to get more active. Indiana actively trying to lose. The Nets actively trying to lose. The Hornets actively trying to lose. The Bulls on the edge.
They never do. They always are very happy to make the play-in. But regardless, they're not great.
If they were smart, they'd actively
And they may
try
still,
and
and
lose.
they could change course, certainly.
If the Bucks are without Giannis, they're going to start actively trying
They
to lose.
don't own their pick.
Are we sure about that? We were talking about that with David last night.
No, I don't think they own their pick.
David was saying this might be the one they actually own.
I think this pick is actually part of the New Orleans trade that goes to Atlanta because Atlanta gets the best of the Bucks or the Pelicans pick. That's why it was such a crazy trade. It was 2 bites at the apple for a lottery pick. Now, you only get to make one of the selections, but it was the best of those 2 selections. So I do think the Bucks they may get the second of these, or maybe New Orleans gets the second of these. So at least they felt like there was some fallback. But no, I don't think the Bucks control the destiny.
So
of their own
they won't
selection.
actively try and lose, likely. That's probably. I mean, the Heat. We're going to do what the Heat do, and right now we're getting into the 9th spot in the East.
Yeah.
And any of these teams could actively turn around and try and lose if they really wanted to. I mean, like if the Sixers all of a sudden went into the tank, although they don't own their own pick either.
But here's the point. 7 teams are actively trying to lose. There are 2 other teams, and maybe 3 if you include the Bucks, in the Clippers and the Pelicans, who can't get out of their own way and are losing despite the fact that they don't own their own pick. So that's 9 teams. Now, this does include the Jazz. In a draft where the Jazz have to have a top 8 pick, and you're not just comfortable finishing with the 8th worst odds because that means you have a 40% chance of giving up your selection. In fact, if you're going to end 8th, you might as well just go for the playoff. Because if you do finish 8th, you get jumped by 1 team and you give the Oklahoma City the 9th pick. That's actually a far worse case scenario than not even giving yourself a chance to win the lottery, going for the play-in tournament and saying, well, worst case scenario, you deliver a 14th or 15th pick to the Thunder. That's a better option than saying, well, what if you accidentally give them the 9th pick?
Part of me, I don't know. The NBA is set up for this losing on purpose strategy, so far be it for me to criticize. But part of me says the Jazz should just say, screw it, give Oklahoma City the pick, and trade back in. I still don't understand why nobody talks about that. If there's a player that you want in the lottery, well, trade in and get him.
Yeah, and you're probably not going to be able to get up to top 3, but you can probably get to 4, 5, or 6 using all your slew of draft picks.
It depends on who's in the top 3. I wouldn't count that out.
It always does. It always depends on who's in the top 3.
And what the prospects are and all of that stuff. And the Jazz have so many assets, they could absolutely overload a deal and get into the top 3. I don't know if that'd be smart or not, but why does nobody talk about that?
Well, and again, at this point last year, we were saying, there's no way to get into the top 3 because we knew it was going to be Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, and Ace Bailey. And what happened? Ace Bailey fell to 5. So, yes, to your point, actually what they're looking at now or feel like we know for sure now certainly will probably not be the case when we get to June. We don't know what this top 3 is going to look like.
I don't know. Are you really going to just pull a plug and try and lose for an entire other year just to keep this stupid pick that they've planned the franchise around for over a half decade now?
Yep. I'm with you.
And there's just more than one way to do things. I don't understand why we get so focused on the lottery positioning of first-round picks. I don't get why people are so obsessed with it. I think I heard you make the point on with David James this morning. These same teams that got screwed by the lottery last year are going back in on it again, even though they got totally screwed.
Got pantsed on live television.
And Dallas, the team that had the worst possible odds, are the ones that got Cooper Flagg.
Because it might happen for us. Because if you do get Cooper, it can change things quickly. Or at least you think it can change things quickly.
And you know what? If it comes up with my number on roulette, then I'm going to leave a rich man.
Sure.
But that's not a...
I'm telling you, you're preaching to the choir. And I do think a lot of it, and I'm not necessarily accusing the Jazz front office of doing this. I think this is what every front office does. I'm not singling them out at the very least. But it's absolutely the easy way to go. It's the easiest way to do it, is to just say, well, let's get Victor Wembanyama, or let's get Cooper Flagg, or let's get A.J. DeBonsa, or whoever goes number 1 overall in this draft, because that makes it easier for us, because we think that's going to help us win. But that's not how the Toronto Raptors won a championship. It's actually not how the Milwaukee Bucks won their championship. It's not how the Oklahoma City Thunder won their championship. It's not how the Nuggets won their championship. It's an easier path, conceivably, but it does just get you off the hook of doing the work that the Pacers did last year to get to the championship. that the Thunder did to win a championship.
Oh, yeah. The Pacers are a great example. They didn't draft anybody.
And so are the Thunder. They have one number 3 overall pick in Chet, and he's probably their third best player. Otherwise, they've done great job scouting guys in the NBA, taking advantage of desperate teams in trades.
Well, everybody loves to give Sam Presti credit. He lucked into Shea.
He did luck into Shea.
He lucked into Shea for sure. He lucked into the
But he did the work to get Paul George. That was not pretty.
And then convinced him to stay.
Him to stay.
Yep.
But again, that's another route you can do. You can take risks, hoping that it pays off down the line by betting on assets and not just saying, well, the best way to do it is to lose 70 games.
Here. No, I totally agree with you. Great point. All right, Hanson, Scotty G are coming up next. Stay tuned. Jake and Ben.
Thanks,
We'll talk to you tomorrow on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.